As an entrepreneur, you only have two jobs. Let everything else go. Hey everyone, Jason here, and today I wanted to share with you the final piece or block of my productivity system. Just in case you missed it, over the past couple of vlogs, I've been sharing my vision board process all the way down to my goal and project management process. I'll link up to the playlist in the description. Here, I wanted to go through what I've distilled down to the only two things we should be doing as entrepreneurs, and then actually diving into my Gantt chart and how my first month of 2020 has actually gone. So I'm definitely looking forward to your feedback on what you think of how I've actually wound up structuring my weeks and where you think there are areas for improvement or how you do it differently. So before we dive into the Gantt charts and the time blocking of the day, we need to talk about what you should be doing as an entrepreneur. Because it's one thing to go through your vision process, setting some goals, and then hopefully if you do have a team, whether it's one person or five, you start looking at what they can do. But then at the end of the day, it also comes down to what should you be doing as an entrepreneur and what should your goal be doing as an entrepreneur. There's a grammar mistake in there somewhere, right? So the first thing that you're always going to have as the leader, as the owner, as the master commander of your ship is the manager time. And then there is the maker time or creator time. Now, this particular concept is not new. It's not something I came up with. I think the first person to actually start talking about manager and maker time was Paul Graham. He's a Silicon Valley investor, but essentially your day should be split between when you're playing business person, you're playing entrepreneur, working on project management, communicating with your team, setting goals, setting plans, and then when you're actually creating something, when you're actually building something. Now, there is, I think, this misconception where you should never be working in your business. You should always be working on your business. Well, after a couple years of doing this, I don't think that's the right mindset to have. I think your mindset should be that you should become the best leader you can, and you should become the best creator that you can. Because at the end of the day, as the entrepreneur, it's your job to lead your business and lead your team, but it's also your job to make sure that you have a competitive edge. Now, I think there is a little asterisk here if you're doing services, which I'll get to in a little bit, but for the most part, I think as a digital entrepreneur, you should be focused on being the best leader you can be and then spending the maximum amount of time you can on creation, actual creation. So I'll go through what I think creation is for each one of my business quadrants here, but just with that, just keep that in mind as we move forward. So just in case you missed it, I'm going to jump into my screen here now. You're going to see that this is what our Gantt chart looks like. So I use this as our compass per quarter. So I do this on a quarterly basis. I don't try and plan out the whole year. That's crazy. So all of these blocks represent things that we want to do in terms of development or training or hiring, and then the time span we think it's going to take and how many hours we think it's going to take. So for example, hiring a blog writer, we think it's going to take about 20 hours over 2 weeks. Although I definitely have to move that because we ran out of time and we weren't able to do it. So let's go down to something that actually is happening. So this is what our YouTube content creation process looks like. Now there's a name column that's hidden for obvious reasons, but if we come down here, my job is to do the content outline, and my job is also to do the filming or the actual A-roll, which is like what you're watching right now, and B-roll is all of the action shots that we sometimes overlay on top of the vlogs and other content. Right? So it's going to take about 7.5 hours to write the outlines that I need to, and then another 1.5 hours to film. As weird as it may sound, with the exception of the vlogs, actually doing the recording is the fastest part of the entire process. Vlogs seem to always take longer with recording though, because they're not as structured, and I always wind up talking over myself, which is why I talk so fast in these, because I'm so excited to share everything with you, right? So this is what tells me, as someone who's inside the business and has jobs inside of the business system, what I need to do throughout my day. So now let's go ahead and go over to what my current ideal week looks like. Keyword ideal, because as you'll see in a little bit here, it definitely never works out that way. So the first thing I do when I'm setting up my time blocks is I set when I'm going to wake up, which is 4:45 right now, and when I go to sleep, which is around 8:45 or 9. So I get the needed 8 hours of sleep, which is absolutely critical as an entrepreneur. I've done the 5 and 6 hour a 6-hour nights thing, and I've done the 8, and even I tried 10 hours for a while. 8 is a good number, just saying. So then the next thing that I want to do is have the first 4 to 5 hours of my day for my one thing time. Now, this is some place where I'm still not clear. I'm still struggling with this. So I don't want to pretend like I have this all figured out. So my one thing time, I've kind of taken it down, distilled it down to my maker or creator time. This is where I need to create something new. I actually need to take something that's in here and bring it into reality, bring it into reality. And so there are 3 different types of creative things I think we should be doing as digital entrepreneurs. And again, I'm still struggling with how I balance all 3 of these, because all 3 of these are very important to do. So the first one deals with content. As you can see, for the first three days of the week, it's all about content. So for me, my one thing is still pretty much creating content. And that is the actual writing of the video outline, doing the actual filming, and then coming up with the ideas based upon the keywords, or just coming up with a vlog idea, right? Outside of those 3 things, it's my job and my goal as an entrepreneur over here to make sure that me as the creator only does these 3 things. Now, I get it. We don't all have unlimited budgets to just have other people do things for us, right? I still struggle with this too. But if you have the budget for someone to do your thumbnails, for someone to do keyword research, for someone to write headlines for you, or do the editing, or create graphics, then that doesn't fall into one of these 3 things. And as the entrepreneur and content creator, your job is to get your content process so nice and tight that you only have to do those 3 things. Now, when it comes to your product or your service, it's a different story, which right now is Thursday because I'm frantically working on a program that we're hoping to get out the door by the end of February. And so that day, I spend my one thing time on that, which, if you've read the book, doesn't really follow the principle, but I'll get to the problem with that in a moment here. And so when it comes to your product or your service, if it's your product, then your time should be spent actually writing the digital course modules, or answering the questions if you're doing a mastermind, something where you're actually doing the creation. There shouldn't be any administrative work inside of that maker time. So if you have to add a new module to your website, or you're doing customer support like refunds or resetting passwords, those types of things aren't creation. Those are administrative. They should be done by somebody else, or fit into your admin time over here. But your maker time, you should spend the most amount of time you can actually making the product. Now, when it comes to your services, this was an area where I used to spend, I think half my week I used to spend on delivery of client services, because it was just me and 2 other people. So I had to do a lot of the client work. Now I have a business partner and we have a team, so most of that client work is done by them, and I only have to do a very small portion of it. And in some instances, I just don't do any of it because my business partner is way better at it and he doesn't need my crummy input. He knows what he's doing, right? So that does it for the product side. And then when it comes to your sales funnel, which is the last quadrant that you should be looking at in terms of actually creating something, it's the copywriting. So it's really easy to get thrown off by all the tech stuff. But at the end of the day, as the entrepreneur and as the creator, your creation part of the sales funnel process is one thing and one thing only: copywriting. That's it. So as a quick summary, I really hope you're tracking with me. If you're tracking with me, hit the like button. If you're not, please comment below and be like, I don't know what you're talking about. You're just talking nonsense right now. I really do want this to be helpful to you, because this is so important, because you have a limited amount of time in the day. We need to make sure that you're spending it on the right things. You're either working on your business or you're creating something new. So when it comes to content, all your job is to do is to record and write. You try and delegate everything else. When it comes to your product or your service, your job is to identify the part of your service where you are creating something new. You really need to be the person there, and then hire someone to do all the other stuff. For example, when I was a solopreneur and I was doing advertising for clients, I would do the keyword research, do the keyword grouping, and I would write the ads. Then I would have my assistant go and physically build out the account. because it doesn't matter to the client if someone who's building out the account, the strategic part of the service was the research and the copywriting. So I did that small portion, and then I did the optimization, and I had all the other administrative stuff done by somebody else. And when it comes to your course, you want to approach it the same way. Heck, I even think you should be starting to think about updating your courses, but that's is a rant for another day. And then when it comes to your sales funnel, have somebody else have somebody else putting together the actual technology through it. And your job is to just do the writing. You show up, you see what landing pages are working, what emails are working, what ads are working, you create the new version, and then you move on with your day, because that should be your focus. So I sincerely hope that made sense. That is pretty much how I try and structure my day. Now, the problem I've been running into is I really enjoy the concept of the one thing and really focusing on having like one main task or one main goal, and then just giving the first part of your day to that. Something that I've run into though is creating content, doing the copywriting, and actually building the physical product. All three of those things are something that do need to be done, and just based upon how long they take, the hours in the day just aren't enough. So right now, something that I'm trying to do is the first 3 weeks of the month, I work on content, and then if I have time, I do a little bit of product. And then I reserve 1 week, essentially 1 week a month, where my one thing time is spent on sales funnel, copywriting, coming up with our sales strategy, and then that gives 3 weeks for the team to go build everything out. So that way I'm focused on just 1 week. I go super hard, super deep. I don't do anything else. I just think sales funnel. And then by the end of that week, all the copy is written, all the customer avatar profiles and unique edges and selling propositions are done. And then I just hand that off to someone who's actually going to go physically build the landing pages and physically make the actual ad campaigns, because that's the easier part, right? So I'm just figuring out what's the nucleus of the sales funnel process that I can hand off to the smart tech people so they can go build it for me. Now, obviously, that might not be practical, but that's just what I'm trying to accomplish right now. And that has been essentially my compromise to, I think, the core principle of focusing on one thing that's really important, and also getting the other things done. Because the other 3 hours of the day, I'm assuming you're doing 8 or 10 hours. If you're doing more than 10, you're just gonna kill yourself. So the other, three hours of the day, assuming you do 8, you spent 5 on Maker, the other 3 is where you're actually running your business, you're planning, you're setting your new time blocks, you're adjusting your Gantt charts or however you do your quarterly planning, and you're delegating and communicating. And so that is how I essentially have gone through coming up with this ideal week. And of course, this ideal week doesn't always happen. So let's go ahead and go to this week right now. You'll probably see that I am still recording. This has taken way longer than I thought, but I think we're on take like 9 or 10. So I don't always get this on the first try, right? So I better check emails in a couple minutes here. So as you can see here on Monday, I lost quite a bit of time because my mouse finally broke. After 3 or 4 years, it broke. So I went out and bought this overpriced Mac product, because for some reason, Mac products in my experience just seem to work, even though they're overpriced and I think they underdeliver. But right now I care about reliability as opposed to features. So RIP MX Master. And then you can see on Tuesday, I wound up having a business meeting with my business partner in the morning instead of doing content, which is why I'm recording this video today. And this morning, I felt like going for a run. So there's definitely times in your time blocks where you can take advantage of the fact that you have some freedom. Obviously, if you're still working or you still have a part-time job, you have to work around that. But it's okay if you switch things up every once in a while. So let's go to the previous week, just because I want to show you what my focus week looked like. So this was the last week in January, and all I did was focus on putting together our new sales funnel. And then the previous 2 weeks, I was all about content. Now this was a little different because I lost the first week of January to being sick, so I did have to make up some work on the weekends. So you can see here, the first week of January, I was in bed sick because of the freaking pizza, so I didn't get much done. And then the second week in January is when we started finally making content. So I hope this is helpful. I'm very curious what you think of these time blocks. I'll go through week number 3 here so you can see, and how you structure your day and what you think about the differences in terms of manager time and maker time. So that, I think that does it for this video. I've been rambling enough. Thank you so much for watching. I sincerely hope you got some value and inspiration out of this video, and most importantly, you know what you should be focusing on as a digital entrepreneur and content creator. Just zero in as much as you can to actually creating something new, because that's going to create the most momentum in your business. And then 3 to 4 hours of your day is spent playing business owner, being entrepreneur, running everything else. So go ahead and hit that like button, comment below with your questions and feedback. And as always, keep building the business you love.